Yo, what's going on guys? My name's Chevalric and today I just want to sit down with you guys and talk about Necromancy and my opinions about the skill now it has been fully released. As many of you might know, I have tested this skill all the way back in May and I've seen a pre-build of it and now it's finally finished and oh my lord, it has changed a lot and we'll talk all about it in this video. If you do enjoy it, leave a like, join the discussion in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about Necromancy. Do you enjoy it as much as I do? What do you think needs to change? Let me know. And subscribe if you're new because there's going to be a lot of Necromancy content coming to this channel over the next few weeks, including my entire playthrough of the skill. And check me out on Twitch as well. I'll be live after this video goes live at 6 PM game time, to be able to stream Necromancy and actually play through it live with you guys. But let's get into the video and let's talk about my opinions. So to give a little bit of background of my first opinion, my initial opinion when I playtested it, I give Necromancy a 7.5 out of 10. This grade doesn't mean anything, it's just based on my personal experience and it's not like some scientific methodology that I used to be able to determine the grade. No, it was just like, what would you give it? A 7.5. But I set it at a potential to be a 9 to a 9.5, around the mark that I would give Archaeology, which I think till the point of Necromancy is the best skill ever to be released. So what has changed and what is my opinion now? Well, let's just jump into the tutorial because I'm going to be honest, the tutorial at first was not that great. And I got a lot of slack of my way of playing the tutorial initially because I spacebarred through it. And people are like, of course you didn't understand it because you spacebarred through it. Just for context, I asked the developers if I was allowed to do so, and they actually said that would actually give us a good insight because we know that a majority of our players actually do so. And well, I did it, and it was actually not really that understandable. So, what did I do when I was able to playtest again? I spacebarred through it again to see if it was better. Obviously, I now had an understanding of the skill because I played it before, but even just judging from the tutorial with having forced pop-ups that you need to click through. And I mean, if you're clicking through them anyway, you're probably reading them because they're very short and you can just check them out and it's very simple and not like bloated information. Before, it was actually in the chat box or in conversation with NPCs and now it's just bang on your screen with this big pop-up window that you need to click through to be able to move on with the tutorial, and you can't just hold the spacebar button, which I think is good and makes a huge difference. And the tutorial now actually makes you understand everything pretty much to a T. The only thing that I did find a little bit confusing is when you go to the tech tree or the skill tree or whatever. I will probably be calling it the wrong name for the entirety of the skill, so bear with me. But when you go to the skill tree, it is a bit confusing to look at, especially when it comes to that experience bar above what the ability does. I'll put an arrow whilst I'm editing so you can see what I mean. But yeah, that confused me a little bit. It's clear to me that that is the total experience that you need to be able to get your next skill point. And you can figure that out if you press the I button that's there. But yeah, just looking at it, that was a little bit confusing for me, but the rest was actually pretty understandable. Like the tutorial from like setting up the rituals was good anyway, but now that you're actually able to find the NPCs that you need to go to was actually really good because we weren't able to find, like literally only Lucario was able to find the store now, and now there's just a trail going there, breadcrumb trails I think is what they call it, to go there. So the tutorial honestly is goated. I think the tutorial went from like a 6 to like literally a 10 because I was testing with Protox and we were literally talking, like Protox is saying like, I don't need to make a guide on the tutorial because it is so good in the game, there's no point in me making it. And if Mr. Frogman says it, it must be true. So, next up are the rituals. And I think that the rituals are honestly the most boring part of Necromancy. I enjoyed them quite a lot when I first tried them back in May, but now after doing them a little bit more, and especially the early levels, they're very boring and they're take long, and especially with how combat has changed, which we'll obviously jump into, you just don't want to be doing it. It kind of takes you out of the flow of things. I would love for them to kind of like speed it up or something, or make it so you can put in more resources so you get more out of like one ritual, or any way to just speed it up, because it's kind of like a boring thing to do throughout your combat training. It's nice to AFK, I guess, and apparently at high levels they become exciting, but if something becomes good at higher levels, it's not actually good game design. At least that's what Mr. Josh Drive Hayes always says. If it gets good 10 hours in, it's not good, and I do agree with that. And that's the same with the rituals. They might get good later on, but early on they're just boring. Nothing really much happens. Sure, there's random events spawning, but you click on them and then you continue on your ritual. There's nothing much going on. It's still content, in my opinion. It's very useful content, don't get me wrong, because used to upgrade items and to get other things that you will need to be able to do your necromancy stuff, like for example the runes, because you first need to do the pure essence into impure essence and then you can runecraft them. But overall, I just, yeah, it's if I would grade it, I would give it like a 6.5 or something. It's okay, it's nothing too special, but it's definitely not my favorite part. But something that wasn't my favorite part, oddly enough, when I first tried it out, was the combat. Because the combat to me was a bit confusing, because you got all these abilities and I was hovering over it and the explanation was alright, I guess, but I just didn't really understand it. And they changed that, and the way they changed that honestly makes me so happy. Besides them reworking the entire tools tip system in RuneScape, they also made it so that when you level up, there will be a big pop-up saying whatever the ability does. It will be like, hey, this ability does this amount of damage, and it's no longer like percentage damage, but it's actually the flat out damage that you will do with the weapons you have on. So if an ability does 1000 damage with your tier 30s, if you put on tier 40s, it will suddenly do 1250 damage, and it will show in the tooltip, so you actually know what they do. But also when you unlock an ability, it will tell you what it does, and that is so important, because yet again, as the regular tutorial, it is something you have to click through, and that is so important, because then you will read it. And if you read it, you will understand it, and that makes the combat more understandable for the majority of players, and that made me just enjoy it a lot more. Even though I was just mainly slaying trolls and skeletons and tried it on rock crabs, I had more fun than taking on Nex when I did my first initial playtest. Obviously, I wasn't able to try out any bosses yet, and I'm very curious to see how that feels, but I would assume that with the progression that you would have through the combat system and learning all the abilities one by one, it will feel really good. And that really good feeling is something that I feel like the entire skill now has, and I didn't really have it. I felt a bit detached, when I first tried it out in May. It wasn't that I wasn't enjoying it. It might have just been because it was very overwhelming, right? Because, you know, there's so much going on there. I am there trying to test things and giving feedback and having to look at things in a different way than just playing it and enjoying it, right? But then again, it just didn't really, it didn't feel clunky. That's not the right word, but it just didn't, you know when you just don't feel something. You kind of just are like, like you can see it's good, but you just don't feel any attachment to it. And this time that I played it, it was that I had to get off because I had to, get to editing and I was tired and etc. I had to watch F1 as well. It was just, I didn't want to get off. And that was a very good feeling, because initially in May, I was kind of glad that we got off and we went to do other things. Not that I was bored or thought that I was bad, but it was just, yeah, and now I just didn't want to get off. I just wanted to keep it training and keep on going and keep on exploring and keep on checking out the city, because that city looks absolutely beautiful and it's probably the most beautiful area in RuneScape as of this point, and I can't wait to check it out with Skybox. I actually forgot to do it last time I played, but it just feels alive and it feels like a skill. It feels finished, it feels good, and it feels like something that will have a lot of secrets when it comes to lore, and it will have just so much going for it when it comes to combat. And I generally think that this will push everyone towards Necromancy as their main combat style, especially people who don't really have endgame gear as it is right now. I have no idea where it will sit in the meta, but I do think that it will push everyone towards Necromancy because it's so fun to do. It's so satisfying. Like, the abilities look cool. When you press an ability, it feels like you're actually doing something, and it is accessible to everyone with all the tutorial stuff, but also the way you can just upgrade your gear by just playing through it. You don't really need that much. You may need like tens of millions instead of hundreds or billions even for most cases to be able to get the highest tier. And if you want to get the highest tier eventually, you'll be able to take on the bosses, and those bosses will probably drop other stuff, or if you get a duplicate, you can probably sell it for a lot of money as well. So I think it will work out fine, and I'm very excited to see where Necromancy will take us in the following weeks with the roadmap that has been presented to us. So yeah, I really do hope that you guys did enjoy it, and let me know your opinion, because mine went from a 7.5 to a 9. I would say a 9.5, but I haven't played the end game with it yet, but I'm assuming it will be pushed towards a 9.5. So yeah, my grade now is 9, and let me know what's yours in the comment section down below. And my name is Chevalric, and I'll see you guys in my next video.